I would say from an international perspective, I think it's very positive. I think the reform agenda that has been announced, early days, but it's encouraging. I think that's one of the reasons you see the markets doing as well here in India as other parts of the world at this point in time. So I think it's off to a really good start. I think the reach out that this government has had to a number of key players around the world, whether it's Japan, the United States, et cetera, has all been very, very well received from that perspective. Quite frankly, last week with the recent trade agreement being resolved between the United States and India, very, very, very positive. I think that's been a great sign that this government is willing to move forward in a very, very positive way. So early days, very encouraging, a lot to do, obviously. This upcoming budget is going to be critical, and I think people are going to be looking for real signs of the reform agenda being implemented.
I'm going to pick your brains a little more on the budget in just a while from now, but there was a lot of euphoria that investors had, and you're right in pointing out that capital markets have been on a bounce because of that. Given that initial euphoria, there's also some noise now beginning to gain momentum that things are not really changing on the ground. You've got to give the government its due that it takes a while. It takes 2, 3, even 4 quarters sometimes. By when do you see action begin to pick up on the ground? By when do you see money break on the ground?
Well, it's early days. I mean, I think the way you phrased it is the right way to look at it, which is, one is you want to understand, from the highest levels of government that these are the policies, these are the reforms that are going to be put in place. I think this government has done a very good job at that.
That's right.
I think now it's the age-old issue, right? The devil's in the detail, and investors are going to be looking for real concrete examples of reform. For example, what was done in the insurance sector. A very positive message about opening up that particular sector. More of those types of reforms, I think, will go a long way to continuing to build on the momentum that's really been established here over the last 6 months.
While the government has made some really nice noises and has communicated it also very well to the people at large, to the investor community about what it intends to do, there is a lot of concern on whether or not the government can actually bite the bullet, whether or not the government can actually go the whole hog as far as legislative reforms are concerned, that the ones that require the approval of Parliament, because there is an opposition and the government is in a minority in the upper house. Are investors concerned about the fact that reforms that require legislative approvals, insurance for one, may be delayed or may actually not see light of day?
Well, I think that's always the risk factor here, right? Which is, it's one thing to have a positive pro-business, pro-investment, agenda. It's another thing to actually get the reforms, accomplished. To your point, early days, 6 months, you're not looking for massive changes, but you're looking for really positive messages, positive results that will demonstrate, the real ability to accomplish the reform agenda.
While these reforms carry on, while the government tries to unclog the system, we are a very growth-obsessed nation. Everybody likes to talk about growth to the last decimal point. Where do you see India's growth trend at? And over the course of this government's tenure in the next 5 years, do you believe, are we being too ambitious when we say we could perhaps get a double-digit growth? Could that be a possibility?
Well, it's most definitely a possibility. I think when you look at the details that are contained in our report, we're saying 9% growth. 9% growth is really necessary over the next 20 years to allow India to really reach its potential. We think it's definitely doable. But again, it gets back to the earlier discussion we were just having, which is it requires reform, not only from a government standpoint, but also from a private sector perspective, both working together to really drive this agenda on a go-forward basis.
Your report talks about 9% average rate of growth over the next 20 years to get to the U.S. economy of $10 trillion. Isn't that too ambitious a number that you've put out there, or do you believe the higher the benchmark, the harder the hard work will be?
Well, some would say it's ambitious. We don't think so. When we look at what has to happen in terms of job creation during the next those next 20 years, significant number of jobs that need to be created in order to have this economy realize the potential, in order for people to realize their ambitions. And so, you almost have to back into this to say, if we are to achieve that type of success, it's going to require that type of growth over a period of 20 years, which means, as you point out, that's the average. So in periods where it's less than 9%, it's going to have to be greater than 9% in order to make up on that average over the 20-year period.
Commodity prices over the world have eased. Food prices in India are lower. Inflation is beginning to get into that comfort zone. First few green shoots of recovery are being seen. Are we too smug to believe India is in a sweet spot?
Look, I think you've got some really positive stars lining up here. When you think about oil, price per barrel, who would have ever thought it would have been at this level just 2 years ago? And so, you do have a number of factors that are really, really positive for this economy, and hopefully, will be, providing an adequate foundation for this economy to really take off. So I'd rather have, the tailwinds behind me versus headwinds, and right now you've got tailwinds.
That's a very big vote of confidence that's coming for India, and considering you say tailwinds are perhaps more on the radar. If I may just turn focus and talk to you about monetary policy, because we're also a nation that seems to be obsessed with the debate whether rates should go down or should not go down. We don't leave it to Raghuram Rajan alone. We discuss it all the time. And so my question is that because inflation is now in a comfort zone, the finance minister has very openly said that a rate cut will spur growth. It will boost economic activity. The RBI still chooses to be a lot more hawkish than policymakers here in New Delhi. Which side of the debate would you want to throw your weight behind?
Well, I think it gets back to the economic policies you want to put in place here. I think without question, rate reductions can really be a positive for, investment and encouraging investment. I'd say more importantly, what investors are looking for is some clear indication about what's going to happen with rates over a period of time. And so whether you're for the rate cut or not, I think the stability and how you think about that question for the longer term is going to be really essential for giving the confidence that the investors are really looking for the longer term.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.